Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into the dark underbelly of corruption to unveil the top 10 most corrupt countries in the world. Corruption is a cancer that eats away at the fabric of society, hindering progress and exacerbating inequality. Let's shed light on these nations and explore the depths of their corruption. Somalia consistently ranks as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Decades of conflict, political instability, and weak governance have created an environment where corruption thrives. Corruption in Somalia permeates various sectors including government, business, and civil society. Bribery, embezzlement, nepotism, and favoritism are rampant, hindering development, exacerbating poverty, and undermining public trust in institutions. Efforts to combat corruption face significant challenges due to limited resources, institutional weaknesses, and ongoing security concerns. International support and cooperation are crucial in addressing the root causes of corruption and promoting transparency and accountability. South Sudan, the youngest country in the world, has been plagued by widespread corruption since gaining independence in 2011. Political instability, ethnic tensions, and weak governance structures have facilitated corrupt practices across various sectors. Embezzlement of public funds, bribery, and favoritism are common, undermining state-building efforts and exacerbating socio-economic challenges. The lack of accountability and transparency exacerbates the problem, allowing corrupt officials to act with impunity. Addressing corruption in South Sudan requires strengthening institutions, promoting good governance, and fostering a culture of integrity. International support is essential in providing technical assistance and capacity-building initiatives to combat corruption effectively. Syria's prolonged civil war and political turmoil have created fertile ground for corruption to flourish. The collapse of state institutions, coupled with widespread violence and displacement, has facilitated corrupt practices across various sectors of society. Cronyism, nepotism, and bribery are widespread, undermining reconstruction efforts and exacerbating humanitarian challenges. Corruption undermines public trust in institutions and perpetuates instability, hindering prospects for peace and development. Addressing corruption in Syria requires comprehensive reforms, including strengthening the rule of law, promoting accountability, and rebuilding institutions. International support and cooperation are crucial in addressing the root causes of corruption and promoting sustainable development. Yemen's protracted conflict and humanitarian crisis have exacerbated corruption and abuse of power. The collapse of state institutions and ongoing violence have created an environment conducive to corrupt practices. Embezzlement, bribery, and nepotism are rampant, exacerbating poverty and undermining public services. The lack of accountability and transparency perpetuates impunity, further eroding public trust in institutions. Addressing corruption in Yemen requires comprehensive reforms, including strengthening governance structures, promoting transparency, and combating impunity. International support is essential in providing technical assistance and resources to address corruption effectively. Venezuela's economic crisis and political turmoil have been compounded by widespread corruption and mismanagement of state resources. The authoritarian regime led by Nicolas Maduro has overseen a system characterized by cronyism, nepotism, and embezzlement. Corruption permeates all levels of government, exacerbating poverty and undermining democratic institutions. The lack of accountability and transparency exacerbates the crisis, leading to widespread social unrest and economic collapse. Addressing corruption in Venezuela requires comprehensive reforms, including restoring the rule of law, promoting accountability, and rebuilding institutions. International support is essential in providing humanitarian aid and promoting democratic governance. Sudan has a long history of corruption, exacerbated by decades of political instability, conflict, and economic mismanagement. Corruption is pervasive across various sectors, including government, business, and civil society. Embezzlement, bribery, and nepotism are widespread, undermining development efforts and exacerbating poverty. The lack of accountability and transparency perpetuates impunity, eroding public trust in institutions. Addressing corruption in Sudan requires comprehensive reforms, including strengthening governance structures, promoting transparency, and combating impunity. International support is essential in providing technical assistance and resources to address corruption effectively. Equatorial Guinea is one of the wealthiest countries in Africa, yet it suffers from high levels of corruption and authoritarian rule. The country's vast oil reserves have fueled corruption and nepotism, benefiting the ruling elite at the expense of the population. Transparency and accountability mechanisms are weak, allowing for embezzlement, bribery, and other corrupt practices to thrive. The lack of political will to tackle corruption perpetuates inequality and undermines development efforts. Addressing corruption in Equatorial Guinea requires comprehensive reforms, including strengthening institutions, promoting transparency, and empowering civil society. International pressure and support are essential in promoting good governance and accountability. Afghanistan has long been plagued by corruption, fueled by decades of conflict, weak governance, and a lack of accountability. Corruption is pervasive across various sectors, including government, security forces, and business. Embezzlement, bribery, and nepotism are rampant, hindering development efforts and undermining stability. The lack of transparency and accountability perpetuates impunity, eroding public trust in institutions. Addressing corruption in Afghanistan requires comprehensive reforms, including strengthening governance structures, promoting transparency, and combating impunity. International support is essential in providing technical assistance and resources to address corruption effectively. North Korea is one of the most secretive and authoritarian regimes in the world, characterized by widespread corruption and human rights abuses. The ruling elite, led by Kim Jong-un, maintains power through a system of patronage and repression, while ordinary citizens face poverty and deprivation. Corruption is pervasive across all levels of government, with officials engaging in embezzlement, bribery, and extortion. The lack of accountability and transparency perpetuates impunity, allowing corruption to flourish. Addressing corruption in North Korea requires international pressure and engagement, as well as support for civil society efforts to promote transparency and accountability. Guinea-Bissau is a small West African country plagued by political instability, poverty, and corruption. The country's weak institutions and lack of accountability have allowed corruption to thrive, undermining development efforts and exacerbating poverty. Embezzlement, bribery, and nepotism are widespread, with government officials and business elites benefiting at the expense of the population. The lack of transparency and accountability perpetuates impunity, eroding public trust in institutions. Addressing corruption in Guinea-Bissau requires comprehensive reforms, including strengthening governance structures, promoting transparency, and empowering civil society. International support is essential in providing technical assistance and resources to address corruption effectively. Corruption is a scourge that plagues our world, hindering progress and perpetuating inequality. By shedding light on the top 10 most corrupt countries, we hope to raise awareness and inspire action to combat this pervasive problem. Join us in the fight against corruption for a better, more just world.